Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's conversation on the YouTube Creators Hub podcast, where we sit down with wonderful YouTube content creators and we ask them different questions about their journey on YouTube. Today, we're joined by Stacie. She is currently a content creator focused on telling stories of turning a 100-year-old elementary school into a home for her family. I saw this. One of her videos was recommended to me in the feed, and I thought this is a awesome story to tell on a podcast. Her previous day job, Stacie began her career as the third employee of BarkBox, which is kind of like a curated box for pets, where for 10 years she launched and shaped the voice, content, and social channels of the most dog-obsessed company in the universe. That's kind of her history. Stacie, how are you doing today?
Great. How are you?
Doing wonderful. So I want to paint a picture for my audience. Schoolhouse Homestead. Basically, you purchased a 1914 Indiana school back in August of 2021, and you started the YouTube channel to document the journey of turning this school into an actual home, hence the name of the YouTube channel, which I haven't mentioned yet, which is called Schoolhouse Homestead. Just over 60 videos, almost getting that 200,000 subscriber mark. People are eating this up. Tell us the origin story of the YouTube channel. Tell us how it all happened.
Yeah, so I've been like a content creator online forever. Had blogs starting in like 2008, 2009, and just watched have ridden like the evolution of how people tell stories and create content online. Always had like crafts and different things, and then like you mentioned, worked at BarkBox for 10 years. So it's always been my job. But we were living in New York City. We moved there in 2012 and we were working and, pandemic hits and we have a baby and, we always planned to move back to the Midwest, but uh once our son was born, I was talking to my husband and I was like, no, I want to move back to our hometown where we're both from. And then about 2 months later, a school came for sale. And we both remembered this school from growing up because we drive by it all the time. It's kind of like an imposing structure in the middle of a bunch of cornfields. And we bought it. And it's been a journey. We because I've always been a content creator, it was always kind of like in the back of my mind, like, oh, this would be really fun to tell this story of turning this old school into a house. It's definitely weird and quirky. And I've definitely been surprised by how much it has resonated with other people. And there are a lot of other old house nerds out there, more than I ever thought.
Yeah, you kind of found your niche on YouTube, and I love this idea of taking an old school building that used to be a school and then turning it into where you're going to live. And you decided to just basically make it like a home improvement show on YouTube. And it's fun to see how the channel has evolved because like 12 years ago, you did a video how to make a fork bracelet. And that's kind of where your origin story on YouTube started. But then obviously, it wasn't until 2 years ago until you started really growing the channel. You mentioned you didn't think there would be that many people interested. When did it hit you? Like, was there a moment where you were looking or you were receiving comments and you told your family or husband or whatever, and you were like, hey, I think we may be onto something?
Yeah, so we were in New York and then we were in Philly for a year for my husband's job, and then we moved back, and then I started getting a lot more serious about making the videos. And it was the first, like, I did like a 2 year time lapse construction video, and it just like popped. And I remember just like standing outside, like watching the metrics being like, you refresh it and it's like 1,000 more views, 1,000 more views, like every time I hit refresh. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like what is going on? So that was like the first big moment. And obviously, I've had a whole career in putting content on the internet. And that was the first moment where I was like, wait, I might be able to do this, like, be this, like, be my job.
Mhm.
And so that was like the first moment of it. And then I think like the larger atmosphere around content, like YouTube is definitely in a really sweet spot in terms of just content in general. Like I think you're looking at like Netflix and HBO, like all these people are making these these shows and they cost a ton of money and they require like 20 people. But what's interesting about YouTube, and I think like people are watching YouTube more, but also what's interesting is like as an individual creator, you can have like longer timelines. You can be doing everything yourself. Sure, it's not as like polished as like obviously the HBOs of the
Hmm.
world, but like I think people just want to watch really interesting stories. And what's really fun about like this moment in time is that you don't have to have it be like the slickest production value as long as you have like a strong narrative and like something interesting to say and you're ruthless with yourself about like are people going to find this interesting, like is this boring, like is this like self-indulgent. So I think it's just like that's been like the moment where I was like, oh, I think I want to like take a crack at this. And so for the last year have been a lot more serious about creating content. And it's just been fascinating to be like in this moment on YouTube.
So, I certainly want to talk with you more about narrative and storytelling and how you decide what goes in a video. So, we're definitely going to get there. But in the early stages of this 2 years ago, when you started seeing a little traction, can you talk about a couple of things that you implemented or that you did that made a difference in the growth of the channel and actually moved the needle forward for you and the channel?
Yeah. So I'm very much like not I I have been like a person of following the metrics by force. Like I'm very much like English major, like I don't love like looking at all the numbers. So the way that I've approached getting the channel to grow has been a lot through initially it was a little bit through PR. So I pitched our local newspaper saying like, hey, like we're turning this old school into a house, and like they did a story about it. I pitched the Indianapolis magazine about it, and they did a story about it. And then I pitched some other like larger like national pieces publications, and they did some stories about it. And then we had like other people who were like, yeah, talk to me when you have like furniture inside. Like I'm not like super into the like, falling down dilapidated plaster part of the story. So I approached it that way a little bit to like kickstart things. And then it's just like right now how a lot of YouTube growth has also been from Instagram and TikTok. I think Instagram and TikTok are really interesting in the way where like you can get a lot of people to see your content, but it's very difficult to like retain an audience or like make sure that they see it like on repeat. Like I feel like YouTube followers are a lot more loyal and they're a lot more patient and they will stick
Yeah.
around once they find you.
Hmm.
So I kind of like have used TikTok and Instagram to kind of be a way to like funnel people over to YouTube because you can make money on TikTok, you can make money on Instagram, but for the most part, it's a better like channel to get people into the YouTube. So really focusing on, I'll have like a longer story that I want to tell on YouTube, like that'll be like a 12-minute episode. But then it's also like figure out how to get that to be like 1 minute and 5 seconds so that you reach the threshold on TikTok where you can where you can monetize it, but also it's like not too long where you're just like dragging it out and people get bored.
So,
So I think like
just to
condensing into 12 minutes into 1 minute is a exercise of like storytelling too.
not to interrupt you, so apologize, but I was wanting to ask you. So you're basically using Instagram and TikTok as a funnel to the YouTube channel, right? These are just kind of the shorter form bits of content that kind of wets their whistle per se, or it gives them a little bit of appetite for the longer form content on YouTube. Can you maybe break it down even more of like even strategically what you're doing over on the short form side of things for Instagram and TikTok and how you're using that? Because I'm at your TikTok page right now, and you can see the first link that you have on your TikTok is your YouTube channel. So you're obviously strategically utilizing
Hmm.
these avenues and outlets to bring people over to the more long form type of content. Can you break that down even more?
Yeah. It's complicated because I also this isn't like confirmed. Like all of the like the magic algorithms of Instagram and TikTok, like they're definitely like black boxes. Like you can follow like Adam Mosseri from Instagram, and like you can have suspicions about like how the algorithm works, but like no one really knows. But I do suspect that if you are trying to get people off of the platform, which is what I've kind of been trying to do, your content gets penalized. So you have to be able to like direct people to YouTube without saying YouTube in like the caption or like even the video. So a lot of it is like the way that you construct the story, where it's like what you mentioned, like you leave people wanting a little bit more. You tell enough of a story where it feels like a satisfying piece of content. Like the person feels entertained. They do not like, I hate the like bait and switches that a lot of content creators do, where it's like, you just wasted my time. Like you didn't fully entertain me. You didn't tell me something new. You didn't like make me laugh. You didn't like satisfy my time spent watching you. But then also like, if you want to see more, like go to the place where you upload long videos. It's it's tricky, but you I have seen like a lot of people shuffle over from there. And then people, it's also like a lot of community management of like, obviously you want to be answering your comments because that helps build like a rapport with people. But also a lot of people like ask questions and you can say like, oh, there's a lot more on my YouTube. So it's a little bit like the way that you construct the story, like satisfy them, but like leave them wanting more, and then also like be responding to people and just like make it very easy to hop over to the longer place of YouTube.
Yeah, so you kind of have to trick the system a little bit if you're wanting to not get penalized. I see that when you put YouTube like in the description of TikTok, you're doing like U, the letter U, and then tube. I'm not sure if that's purposeful or
Mm-hmm.
not, but it seems like it probably is. But I oftentimes tell people that if you are succeeding on these other platforms, and you are, like your TikTok has over 400,000 followers, your Instagram almost 900,000. So you're obviously having impact at these places and being able to bring them over to your long form content where you can more easily monetize it. And you can, I agree with you, building relationships with an audience on those short form platforms like TikTok, Facebook, Instagram is much harder. Like that's why I love podcasting, because these long form podcasts are made for building relationships. Like you said, when me and you were off air, like I've been listening to you for a while now. So you've been listening to the podcast before I even reached out to you. So we already had kind of a digital relationship, even if we really didn't know each other. So building that
Mm-hmm.
community is much easier on YouTube. It's just figuring out a way to funnel those people there. Um,
Yep.
what is something that you wish you would have known sooner? Like looking back now, a couple of years in the future, looking back, what would you say to yourself? Like, man, I wish I would have known these few things sooner. I could have grown even quicker.
Um, with like the timing of life and everything, I don't think I could have, because we weren't like living here, and I was relying on my dad to like film stuff for videos. And let me tell you, my dad's got the shakiest.
Uh,
He's the worst videographer. I had to be like, send my sister instead. So I don't think I don't think there's anything specifically that I could have done, but I do reflect on this a lot, where like we're in this moment right now where like you can kind of like it the story that I'm telling like is working on Instagram. Instagram and TikTok are rewarding like these a little bit longer form stories. Like I came from BarkBox, where like I also went through that era where like meme accounts and like reposting accounts, like that was like the way that you grew super fast. Now that like that doesn't work anymore, and
mm,
like those accounts are really hurting. So I've been through so many eras of like this one thing is like working super well. And we used to have this thing called Bark Post, which was it was kind of like BuzzFeed for dogs. And we got that website up to like 15 million unique visitors per month. But guess what? Like Facebook changed, and then the whole business around it, like everything shifted. So like I'm constantly like watching for like how how is the industry, how are these platforms going to shift underneath your feet? And I think TikTok and Instagram, like TikTok might be shut down tomorrow, like we never know. And then you like lose that whole stream and things that you've built for such a long time. um it's so yeah, so like future looking back, I would say like just watching for like the signs of change and also like diversifying all of your platforms, making sure it's super freaking annoying to like have a 12-minute video and then you have to cut it to like
Mhm.
6 different versions. Like we haven't even talked about like YouTube Shorts as a way to grow as well. It's really irritating to like have to cut all of these things and like just like tweak it just like a tiny bit. You got to like adjust the music for one platform that's different than this platform, which messes up like the cadence of everything that you've edited before. So, but like it's really important to just have all those different things going on because you never know when one of them is going to turn the lights off on you and you're out of the dark.
What does work right now for the short form? You talked about the reposting is what it used to be. I remember those days. Like what's working now for these platforms? And if you someone's listening to this and they want to grow their following on Instagram or TikTok or wherever it may be, what's the themes and the things that you're seeing right now as someone who is succeeding at both of them?
I think it's always storytelling. I think like the answer, I think like the through line of like the last 15 years of that I've been online, it is giving people something useful, but like telling strong stories is the biggest through line. Like those were the most successful things that we had at Bark. Those were the things where like when we had like something epic, like like we had like something that we did like a little like we were like 24 years old like making videos for the internet and like something we did ended up on like the nightly news. It was we had like a 16 we brought the last living 16-year-old dog from 9/11 back to New York City and like threw her birthday party.
Mm.
So it's like storytelling is like the strong through line. I think right now in this specific moment Instagram and TikTok are rewarding strong stories that are a little bit longer. Who knows what that's going to be tomorrow? But definitely like meme accounts are suffering. Um, I it, like a lot of those like reels and stuff that you see. Like there's this sound going around right now where it's like just a beep and it just like repeats and it's kind of like tricking people into like watching a reel like
Mm.
20 times and you're just like ah. But that kind of content it doesn't leave like a good taste in your mouth. It's just a
No.
gimmick. Um, whereas like things where you're like when it's clear that someone has like put their a little bit of their soul into like making this content for you, that shows. And I think whether that's like you're teaching someone how to do something, or you're telling a story, or you're making them laugh, like you just giving them something valuable and not tricking them.
So storytelling is a passion point of mine. It never being a good storyteller is never a bad thing, right? Like being good at telling stories in a unique way, in a way that also expresses the value and the entertainment that you want to portray in your videos is across the board. It makes for good YouTube content, Instagram, TikTok, podcast. If you're a good storyteller, it's going to get you a long way. So I want to ask you this as someone who is a good storyteller, which I know that you are. I've watched a bunch of your videos. I even dug up some of the old BarkBox stuff back in the day that you were doing, and obviously different style than it is now. But what are your pointers or kind of holy grail of if you want to be good at storytelling, what can you do?
I think you need to, I mean, obviously there's the like before, middle, or the beginning, middle, end, like rising action. Like as much as you can like think about those like basic things that you learned in third grade, um, that does help because a lot of people like creators like I see they could have like edited a video just a little bit differently and it could have been better. But I also think it I don't know, it's like being ruthless with yourself and um making Stephen King has this thing where it's like kill your darlings. Like even though that it's like you worked like super hard to like get a certain clip or like you really like something, like think deeply about like is this going to entertain people? Like is this actually interesting or is it only interesting to me? And I think that has helped me a lot throughout the years. And I mean, I think also like a little bit of like self-doubt related to that. Like I'm like, man, I wish I was like better at storytelling. I wish I could like find like more ways to tell stories. I wish I was funnier. Like just always that like striving and like trying for more. Like I think that there's like so much more that I could be doing if I like thought deeper about it, if I like found the time to like really dig in. So I think like never settling and like constantly doubting yourself in a good way, if that makes sense.
Can you get better at it? Is it something like I've always been of the notion of people who can sing, they can sing. And I can't really sing that well. I play guitar, I play instruments, I'm a musician, but I would love to be able to sing. And I've tried to work at it throughout my life, but I still believe there's a bit of a ceiling there as to how good I can be. Is storytelling that way? Can you get better? What are the tactics or things that you're doing for yourself to make yourself better at being a good storyteller?
I think I think people can definitely get better at storytelling. I agree with you on like singing. I wish I could be funny. I wish I was a funnier writer. Like that's why at Bark I hired only comedians because like I want dogs are hilarious. I thought that like that content needed to be like that needed to reflect it. It just stunk that like I wasn't that funny. Um, so I think like those things, like yeah, it there's a little bit like of like you have to have like a lifetime or like a born talent. But storytelling, I definitely don't think so. I think it's like it's a lot like pattern recognition. Like another thing I'll do it's pattern recognition and just like understanding the fundamentals and like studying it and then like testing different things within that format. Like a lot of the really successful pieces of content that I've had have actually been like I'll like watch someone else's thing and I'll be like, "Oh my gosh, like that is a great way to structure that 1 minute piece of content." And I'll just take like the format that they did with like and like repeat it for yourself. And it's I don't think that's like plagiarism because it's like totally different footage. It's like your story, but it's just like looking at like the format of something that is successful and riffing on that.
Mhm.
And I don't think that that requires like some like born talent or like someone who's like gone to a fancy school. No, it's just like this obvious like looking at something like seeing a pattern, like seeing that it resonates with a wide group and kind of replicating that. I think like the big video that I had that was really successful, I was noticing like when I would go to all these like renovation channels, you go to the channel, be like click on their videos, click on the popular ones, and so many of them were time lapse videos. And I was like, oh, I was like, well, I can do that. I've got all this footage. Takes for heckin' ever to edit
Mhm.
it, but but yeah. So
How
yeah, just like analyzing things like that, I think you can get better.
how do you decide what goes in a video and what doesn't? Because you do have a ton of footage, I'm sure. What are kind of your sifting out process of, okay, I have all this footage, but the video, I want it to be a certain length or duration or whatever it may be, and I want to tell a specific story like what we just talked about. So how do you decide what bits get in and what don't?
A lot. I mean, that's something where I feel like I need to work a lot more is like on the videography skills and um so I don't know if I've like watched a clip like 3 times and I start to get bored, I'm like, ooh, I need to cut this down. Because like if I'm bored watching this, then
Mm.
like obviously other people are going to be. And so that's why like if a clip it's like a clip is interesting, I know it is because you can like see like I don't know, like a mason like revealing like a bunch of plaster falling off the wall. That clip is I don't know 6 hours long, but then I like speed it up by like 2,000% and it becomes like 5 seconds. Well, then it's a little bit more interesting. So
Mhm.
it's kind of like what I was talking about before, like Stephen King's like Kill Your Darlings. Like, yeah, you worked really hard to get that clip. Literally had the camera there for 6 hours, and you get 4 seconds of video out of it. Like
Mm.
that's just the game.
Yes, absolutely. Let's talk about monetization. You're doing this now, I mean, I assume full time, right? I mean, you're doing the content stuff full time right now
I have some like freelance stuff on the side, but yeah, no, it
for the most
is.
part.
Yep,
Okay, and
yep.
so can you talk about the different ways that you're making money with the content and maybe break it down? You don't have to tell us exactly how much you're making, but give us like some estimates of what a channel like yours could be making right now.
Yeah, so on YouTube, It depends on if it's a really good month or not, but YouTube is usually like between like 1 to 5,000 a month, depending on like how the videos are performing and how many videos I've put out. TikTok is interesting because TikTok is also about it. It averages like 800 to I think I've gotten like 3,500 one month. So you kind of like layer those two together, and that's just like just out of like the content you're creating, and again you got like thinking about like the hooks. Like if you've like done something good that month, like that's about what it will pay out, at least on my channel. And then where it gets interesting, and this is where like my background, like working on the brand side comes in, starting to layer on the partnerships is also where once you get big enough, you can start layering on different partnerships. And there's so many people out there who are like, I'll send you a chair and you have to make a 1 minute video. And it's like I only choose partnerships where I'm like really excited about it, or I have like something really strong to say about it, like
Mhm.
where you can like make a really good ad for them, and you're not going to bore your audience, because like if you lose your audience, then like what the heck is even the point of any of this? So yeah, layering on like the different partnerships, and some like the partnerships like range wildly based off of like how much I want to do the thing versus like yeah. But I think that the partnership stuff right now, that's another thing that I've noticed, like being in the industry for so long. Like we when I started at Park, it was like novel for a brand to have a Facebook page,
Mhm.
like let alone, and now like look at where we are. It's like social media and direct to consumer has exploded. Um, I think that the heyday of like Instagram partnerships was probably like 2016 to like 2020-ish. And I think like it's fallen out a little bit in that area. But what's fascinating is the YouTube partnerships are, I feel like, where a lot of brands are focusing, and
Yeah.
especially brands that they don't sell physical products, but they take a little bit longer to explain. And whether that's like telehealth companies or like VPN companies, or like, so there is like such an opportunity there where I think these brands are looking, and I know from us being from Bark being a brand, we're looking for like trusted people to tell their brand story in an interesting way that, might convert customers. So yeah, so right now like the monetization is kind of like layered on that, and then also have a ton of construction to do. So sometimes I will do, depending on the product, we need blinds, or
Mhm.
we need like certain things for the house.
Right.
That helps like alleviate it. It's not like money coming in your pocket, but it's like not, you're not gonna have to pay for it now. So
That's right. Yeah. So kind of
that's what.
exchange the content reveal or implementation for the product or whatever it may be. So you're getting something.
Mhm.
You're certainly saving money, which in turn makes you money because you're going to need it anyway. So I love that. Can you talk about the full process of you making a video, start to finish, like ideation to publishing and all that stuff? Like what's all involved?
Yeah. So I kind of have like 12 videos going on always at all times, because like I said, like a TV show, like they need to film like 6 days, and then it's like they're wrapped, like we're done, like we're out. Whereas like mine is a construction story, so stuff is happening every day. And so I've got a story almost done about like the tile, and have a story about like building a garage, and have a story about the floors getting put in. So th- I have like all of these like scripts like half written, and then like once a project gets done, that's when I'll start to work on the actual like editing of the video. It's a little mind-boggling to like set it up that way. It kind of makes you a little crazy, but like I don't really know. Yeah, I haven't figured out a better process. And I think having it that way, like it depends on like the type of content you're doing, but like at least in terms of like renovation, like there's like 12 different stories going on at all times, so that's just kind of how you have to do it. But I don't want to talk about like something half done, because that's not a satisfying piece of content for the
Mhm.
user. I've done it a couple times, but they don't like perform as well. So I did like talking about our garage foundation, and I thought that was really cool because like the the excavators were digging. It's like all the time lapse videos were super fascinating. But when I look back on that, I'm like, ah, it would have been a much better video if it was like start to finish, like our garage getting built, and you get to like sit there for 15 minutes and watch like a building come out of nothing. That's really cool. So yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
viewers want a conclusion. They want to have they want to, they don't want something to go to the end and then you just kind of drop it, right? They want the full spectrum of like you're building this garage out. Well, we want to see it from the beginning to the end. And for you that takes time. So I understand why you have 10 to 12 videos going or scripts going at any time, because as you're renovating, you're not just working on one project, but to make it
mhm.
flow for a video, you kind of have to really be working on multiple projects at once. And so it's really interesting to hear you kind of structure it that way. As we kind of wind down the show here, I want to ask you, like, what's next for the for the podcast? What's next for you and the channel? What are you looking to do short term and long term?
Uh, well, I'm excited because I feel like it's starting to get into like the really fun stuff. I think that now that we're done with like brick and poured concrete and like that stuff is all interesting, but now it's like a lot more relevant to like day-to-day people who are just like doing projects. So eh, I plan on doing like a lot of like quirky little things around the school, making it like magical little details of just like turning a weird old building into a house. In terms of next for me, like that, in terms of like the structure of like the business and stuff, um, definitely starting to line up a lot more partnerships, being very, very picky about that because again, like it has to be interesting to the users. It can't just be like, ah, sweet, like got paid. Now I have to like talk about this like kind of dubious product. Um, and I think it's just like playing it like month to month. Like I said, like I have been in this content world so many times where like the rug gets pulled out from under you. You can't make 5-year plans in this industry. Like you have to just be like watching diligently like what is going on in the industry because otherwise it's going to leave you behind.
What would be your final advice to the YouTube creators listening to this? Like, the if you could just say one thing to them, what would that thing be to whether it be encourage, motivate, maybe a sense of reality? What would you tell the creators listening to this episode?
Like think about your strengths and also be like ruthless with them. Like if you've got like a sense of humor, like push it and like be authentic, be real. I think the internet right now is rewarding people. You don't have to be the most beautiful like I feel like the internet is like revolting a little bit against the influencer culture and like the perfection. I think that like you don't have to be an amazing videographer. You don't have to like everything does not have to be perfect, but as long as you're like telling a good story and you have something to say and you're entertaining people in whatever way you have, like keep keep pushing and like also you're gonna make mistakes and like look back and be like, dang it, I wish I wouldn't have structured that way. I would do that differently. But that's part of the journey.
Value can come and look any different way. And I think that is so interesting to hear you talk about that because I agree. I believe that the YouTube sphere and space that we're in now is so different than it was 4 or 5 years ago. People are, like you said, I don't know if it's revolting or whatever you want to say, they're obviously, you can make impact by your views, right? Wherever your eyeballs are looking, that's where the platforms, YouTube included, are going to want to double down. And so there's people who are doing things in all different industries where it's not overly edited or it's not so professional or whatever it may be. It's just raw and people are, it's kind of humanizing different people and creators, and the creators who normally are doing the overly edited stuff are not seeing the numbers that they used to see. And so just take that and as you may, and utilize it for the types of content that you're producing. So, wow, what a great episode. Stacie, thank you so much for joining me today. Again, Stacie Grissom over at Schoolhouse Homestead, which is her YouTube channel. I'll link her YouTube channel, website, Instagram, where you can look at all of it. And I encourage you to do so because I believe Stacie's doing something really cool. And if anything, just go over to the YouTube channel and follow along with her journey. I know I will, because I think it's super interesting that the story she's telling is not per video, but it's in a series of videos. And she's telling the story and the journey that she can go back and her kids can go back and look at, as well as you, the viewer. So really cool. Stacie, thanks again for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Dusty.